Alright guys, today we're going to be working on a review for your quarter 2 comprehensive exam. Please make sure that you have gotten this paper from your guest teacher, as well as having scrap paper out on your desk, because you're going to need it for some of the problems that we're solving today. You're going to see me go back and forth between this paper and my scratch paper as I show my work for these problems. Make sure you're following along and make sure you're completing all the problems. So for question 1, we have given f of x is equal to 2x to the 4th power minus 24/100 x squared plus 6 and 17x minus 7. It's asking us to find the function of 2, so we're looking to find f of 2. So we know that when we go from f of x to f of 2, that means we're changing the x value to 2. So we need to go ahead and substitute that into our problem. So I have 2 times 2 to the power of 4 minus 0.24 times 2 to the power of 2 plus 6.17 times 2 minus 7. Now, instead of trying to do all of this work and leave room up for error, I'm just going to take a minute, plug all of this into my calculator as is. I'm going to make sure that I'm using the parentheses that were written. I'm going to make sure I'm using the correct powers, using all the signs. Just basically copy paste into your calculator. And when I do that, my answer is coming out to 36 and 38/100. For question number 2, it's asking us to write a linear function for the line that's perpendicular to f of x, which is equal to 1/3 x minus 8, and passes through the point -7, 0. So a couple things I need to register here. First thing is write a linear function. So remember, we have 3 types of linear functions, or 3 forms that we can write in. We've got slope-intercept form, we have standard form, and we have point-slope form. When they give us a problem where they're saying, hey, use this point, and that point is not your y-intercept, you better be using slope-intercept or point-slope form. So remember, point-slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. The next piece that we have to look at is perpendicular. So what does it mean to have a perpendicular slope? It means we need to have an opposite reciprocal. Remember, opposite means opposite signs. So if I'm positive, I need to be negative. If I'm negative, I need to be positive. And reciprocal means taking that fraction and flipping it. So right now, I have a positive fraction of 1/3. I need the opposite of that, which would be negative, and the reciprocal, which would be 3. So my new slope is going to be m is equal to 3. And they already gave me, -3. And they already gave us our point, which is going to be -7, 0. So I'm going to go ahead and take my slope, my point, and plug it into point-slope form. For my y, I do not want to write -0. That's redundant, okay? So we're just going to have y is equal to our slope, which is -3, multiplying with x minus -7. I don't want to write minus -7. If I double negative, I need to be a positive. And so we are x plus 7. For question number 3, we are solving an absolute value equation. We need to make sure that we're following Don't Call Me After Midnight to the best that we can. Okay, there are a couple steps that are going to be different because we have our absolute value marks. We're not going to distribute 4 because we only want to do that with parentheses. 4 is going to be a number that we're going to divide out in our problem. But before I can do that, we're going to subtract 9 over. So I have 4 times the absolute value of -2w minus 1 is equal to 44. We're going to divide by 4. So I have the absolute value of -2w minus 1 is equal to 11. And then remember, when I have absolute value marks, These marks right here act as your branches. Make sure you're branching into a positive problem and a negative problem. So we have negative 2w minus 1 is equal to positive 11, and negative 2w minus 1 is equal to negative 11. Now you've got two problems that you're going to finish solving. Both need to have 1 be added. So we now have negative 2w is equal to 12, and negative 2w is equal to negative 10. And then we're going to divide by the negative 2w, or negative 2. So w is equal to negative 6, and w is equal to positive 5. So there are two answers for this problem. W is equal to negative 6 and 5. For question number 4, we have Donald fills his gasoline tank before leaving on a trip. His car uses gasoline at a constant rate, and the amount of gasoline G remaining after m miles can be modeled by m plus 20G is equal to 640. Select all the statements that are true. For our first option, we had the domain is all real numbers. Most of the time, if it's a linear function, that will be true, but because this problem is a word problem, it has constraints, so we are not going to pick that option. Our y-intercept is definitely not 32. Same thing with the range. We cannot say that it's all real numbers because it is a word problem. Our y-intercept is not 0. So that's going to leave us with our range, saying that our miles can be 0 or equal to 0. It can be greater than that, and it can be less than or equal to 640. So 640 is the max that our miles could be, and the minimum is obviously 0 miles that we're traveling. Then it says the car gets 20 miles per gallon. Well, we saw that G was gallon of gasoline, or the amount of gasoline, so we can assume 20 times G means 20 miles per gallon. On to question 5, we have an equation written in standard form, so I want to think to what kind of information I can get from standard form. I could rewrite into slope-intercept form and be able to have my slope as well as my y-intercept. I can solve for x and y intercepts. So really I can go with either option here in trying to identify which one of these is my graph. I can see x and y intercepts for A, B, C, and D. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and search for in this equation right now to be able to figure out which one's the correct graph. I'm going to go ahead and do that on my notebook paper. So this is question 5. And we have 3x plus 2y is equal to 6. If I'm looking to find my x-intercept, that means my y needs to become 0. We have 2 times 0, which is obviously going to be 0. We're getting 3x is equal to 6, and x is equal to 2. So I know that my x-intercept is going to be located at 2, 0. And then I'm going to look for my y-intercept by making x 0. I'm getting 3 times 0 plus 2y is equal to 6. That's going to give me 2y is equal to 6 and y is equal to 3. So when x is 0, y is 3. So when I look at those graphs, I'm looking for 2, 0 and 0, 3 as my intercepts. And I'm going to see that located at D, where I'm 2, 0 and 0, 3. So my graph is D. Looking at part B of question 5, we have the y-intercept is 0, -1. Well, or -1/2. That's false because we solved for that. We have the x-intercept is 2, 0. That's true because we found that. This is a linear function on a graph, so our domain and range are going to be all real numbers. And then the last thing we're trying to figure out is this point on our graph? Unfortunately, our graph doesn't reach that far, but remember, arrows at the end of the graph tell me that this graph keeps going. So the way I'm going to look to see if this is a solution is by plugging it into my equation. They're saying x is supposed to be 10 and y should be negative 12. And if that's the case, we should be equal to 6. So plugging those numbers in, I'm getting 30 minus 24 is equal to 6. 30 minus 24 is 6. And they check out, which means this is a solution to my graph, or a point on my graph. On a question 6, we have the equation of a linear function g and a table of values of a linear function f are shown. We need to compare the key features of f of x and g of x by completing the table below. So looking at f of x, these numbers are a little tiny, but I can see going from 8 to 4, that would be a decrease of 4. And from negative 1 to 0, that would be an increase of 1. So my slope is going to be negative 4 over 1, or just negative 4. My x-intercept is when y is 0, so that's going to be 1. And my y-intercept is when x is 0, and that's going to be 4. So we have negative 1, or negative 4, 1, and 4. And then for g of x, I can easily identify my slope of negative 1, my y-intercept of 7, and then I need to solve for my x-intercept. Remember, when we're solving for our x-intercept, y is becoming 0. I would subtract 7 over, getting negative 7 is equal to negative x, which means x is equal to positive 7. And it says which function has the greater slope, x-intercept and y-intercept. The greater slope is going to be g of x. The greater x-intercept is going to be g of x. And the greater y-intercept is still g of x. So g of x is going to be the function that has all of the greater values. Moving on to question 7. We have a function on our graph. We're going to go ahead and look for the key things here, being that our y-intercept is located at negative 1. Our slope looks like we're going down 2 over 1, so a negative 2 slope. So we have our m value, which is negative 2, and our b value, which is negative 1. And we need to find an equation that's going to work for that. Over here, when I'm looking at a, I would distribute and I would get y minus 2 is equal to negative 2x minus 6, and then I would need to add 2 over, so that's going to cancel that one out. C has the wrong slope. It's negative 1, our slope's negative 2, so that one's going to be wrong. And then it's going to be a toss-up between b and d, because if I add this one over, that gives me 2x plus y is equal to 1, versus b, which gives me 2x plus y is equal to negative 1. But we know we need our y-intercept to be negative 1, which is why our answer is going to be b. Because if I rewrote this, I would have y is equal to negative 2x minus 1, which is exactly what I want. Okay, looking at question number 8, we have an absolute value function on a graph. It says complete the statement to correctly describe the graph of negative 2 times f of x. For this statement, since we are multiplying the y, and we're multiplying by a negative number, therefore we are going to be a stretch. And that stretch is going to be happening vertically. And then it's going to be by a factor of 2. And then we are reflected over our x-axis for that. Question number 9 says a salesperson, Sarah, is paid $20 per week plus $9 per sale, and this week Sarah wants to make at least $218. So by the problem saying this week, that's telling me that we're only considering 1 week. We see that she gets paid $20 per week plus $9 per sale. So that's telling me that we for sure need to make sure 9's multiplying with X, which we see in all of our problems, and then adding 20, and then really we need to look at the fact that she wants to make at least $218. So that means Sarah's going to be cool with making $218, but she'd rather make more. So if I'm looking at that for my answer, I'm going with D. And if I wanted to quickly eliminate some answer choices, obviously I would be eliminating A and C, because at no point should the money that she's making be a negative number. So that would just leave me with B and D, but we know Sarah would rather have more than $218. Question 10, we need to graph our function. Remember, this is when we need to flip the H, keep the K. So instead of being -1, we're +1, and keeping that 3. That's going to give me my vertex at 1, 3. Then I need to go ahead and use my slope to help me graph the rest of this. So my slope is -2, telling me I need to go down 2 over 1. I need a graph to the right, and then a graph the same to the left. Then I need to answer the rest of my questions. My x-intercept is going to be located in the middle of 2 points, so that's actually going to have to be something that I solve for. My domain, though, is always going to be -infinity, +infinity, all real numbers. My range, we're going to have that y, the highest our y goes is 3. So y is less than 3 or equal to. Our y-intercept is easily located. We're at 0, 1. And our axis of symmetry is going to be at 1, 3. Or, I'm sorry. Our axis of symmetry is when x is equal to 1. Alright, so then we're needing to just find our y-intercept, or x-intercept, and we can do that by plugging in a 0. So we're going to have 0, -2 times the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 3. We'll subtract 3 over. We're going to divide by the negative, so we're 3 over 2 is equal to the absolute value of x minus 1. We know we need to split into 2 separate problems, so we're going to call this 1 1/2 is equal to x minus 1, and -1 1/2 is equal to x minus 1. We'll add 1 over, so we're getting 2 1/2 for x, and add 1 over, so we're getting a -1/2 for x. So we have 2 x-intercepts. We have 2, 5, or 2.5, 0, and -0.5, 0. So 2 x-intercepts for that problem. Again, that's just simple solving equations, making sure that you're following those steps. And then obviously absolute value, making those branches to drop your problem. Looking at question number 11. We have a system shown. It's asking what is the solution. So I'm going to switch to notebook paper for that one. We have our first system, which is x minus 3y is equal to -3. And then 2x minus y is equal to 4. Since we're both written in standard form, we're going to want to make sure that we are using our elimination method. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply my first equation by a -2 to make sure that my numbers are the same but opposite signs. That'll give me -2x plus 6y is equal to 6. I need to add these equations together, cancel out those x terms. -y plus 6y is 5y, and 4 plus 6 is 10, so y is equal to 2. Then I can take 2, plug it back up into an original problem. I'm going to do the 2x minus y, so I'll write 2x minus 2 is equal to 4. I know I need to add 2 over, so 2x is equal to 6, and x is equal to 3. So my solution here is 3, 2. That brings me to question 12, which is going to be another substitution problem. There's a coach buys frozen treats for his team. The coach buys a total of 15 treats, so there's total number 1, which are either ice cream sandwiches or juice pops. Those are the two things that we're going to be talking about. An ice cream sandwich costs $2 and a juice pop costs $2.50. The coach spends a total of $33. There's our second total. So we're going to write this out on our notebook paper. Question number 12. We have our two totals, the first one being 15, the second one being 33. Our 15 is made up of our ice cream sandwiches, which I'm going to use an I, and our juice pops, which I'm going to use J. So I plus J is equal to 15. What I know about I is that it costs me $2, and J costs me $2.50. So there is my system. And then it asks me to complete the statement, the coach buys blank ice cream sandwiches. So I want to figure out how many ice cream sandwiches he's buying, which means I want to eliminate the number of juice that he's buying. Actually, let's just eliminate ice cream. That way we don't have to worry about this decimal. So I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to work with a decimal. So let's eliminate using -2. We'll do -2i minus 2j is equal to -30. Our i's are going to cancel out. This becomes half of j is equal to 3. And then if I divide by a half, that's really multiplying by 2. So j is equal to 6. So if I plus j is equal to 15 and j is equal to 6, then that means I would be equal to 9. So then how many ice cream sandwiches is he buying? He's buying 9. And then it's asking how much does he spend on frozen juice pops. So since it's asking how much he spends on the frozen juice pops, that wants the total spending, okay? Not just how much does each cost, because we already know that. That's $2.50. We want to know how much he is spending. So what we can do is we can take the fact that he has 6 or purchased 6, and we can multiply that by the total cost, which was the $2.50. And that's going to equal 15. So he spent $15 on the juice pops. Alright, and then that brings us to our last question. Question 13, which is asking us to find or write the inequality represented by the graph. So if I'm looking to write my inequality, I need to make sure that I'm following y is equal to mx plus b. I know that I'm not going to use an equal sign, I'm going to use an inequality sign. So the first thing I want to look for is my y-intercept to see if I have one. And I do. My y-intercept is at -2. So I know I'm going to be a -2. I know I need a y in there and an x. And now I'm going to look for my slope. So looking for another clean point to use, I see one right here. That means my slope is going to be a rise of 2 and a run of 3. So I have 2/3 as my slope. And then the last thing I need to do is figure out what sign I'm supposed to be using. So to be able to figure out your sign, you need to be looking at your shaded region and your line. I have a dashed line. So when I have a dashed line, that means I can only have a less than or greater than symbol. And then this is the trick that I taught you guys. Look at your y-intercept and look above and below. If your shaded region is above, that's all of the numbers that are greater than -2, which means all of your y's are greater than -2. So your y has to be greater than -2. So y is greater than 2/3 x minus 2. Alright, that is all that I have for you in your review. You guys have your school city test that you're going to be taking Thursday and Friday, so tomorrow and Friday. Please, please, please make sure that you are trying, that you are putting your effort in. This grade is going to go into the grade book. It's also going to be sent down to the district to see how you're performing in algebra. So make sure that you are trying your best, taking your best guess, even if it is a guess. We've been practicing eliminating answers. Eliminate the ones that just don't make sense, and then take a best guess from the ones left over. Okay, you guys are going to do great. I will I'll explain your scores to you more once I'm back. Do your best, behave, and I'll see you next week.